I think we're not quite ready to go live, so let's get that countdown going one more time. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. If you're logged in at this time, we're trying to get this up on Facebook, so let's try to get that countdown going one more time. All right, here we go. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you for bearing with us on those brief technical difficulties. We are ready to get going for this special event tonight hosted by Indivisible Houston. Why are we here tonight? We are here to discuss how we challenge our elected leaders when they don't want to talk to us. So, my name is Rob Ichsazen. I use he, him pronouns, and I am honored that Indivisible asked me to MC tonight. Very briefly, I host a political podcast here in Houston called H-Town Progressive. I'm also a lawyer. I've been an election worker, but perhaps most importantly, I am the father to 4 school-aged children. And I say that not because I love them so much and everything matters for them because of the future, yada, yada, although that is all true. I say that because of them, every day I see militarized police. I see Kevlar vests. I see weapons of war. I see camouflage gear. Why? Well, if you're a student, if you're a parent, if you are a teacher, if you have driven by a school in the United States anytime recently, you know exactly what I'm talking about. We have militarized police all over the place. That should not be normal in a civilized, peaceful society. It should not be normal. But people like Ted Cruz don't want to hear that. They don't want to listen to us when we call this out. This is not something that we should be used to, but because of folks like Ted Cruz, we are being forced to be used to it. But we can't accept that. They don't want to hear us talking. They only want to hear the in the bubble echo chamber from the radical Trump wing of the Republican Party. That's all they want to hear. If you ever tried to call them, and we should all actively try to engage our elected leaders. It's very hard to get through. They don't want to listen to you if you talk about things like this. So how do you do it? How do you get through to these people when their only political agenda seems to be attacking democracy itself with a fetishized focus on calling into question the legitimate election in 2020? How do you talk to these people? How do you do it? Well, part of why you're tuning in tonight is because you've probably seen a video. It's a video that Indivisible Houston is responsible for creating and putting out. Benjamin Hernandez is the gentleman on screen who we're going to talk to in a little bit, but Benjamin was able to call out Ted Cruz. Let's watch that video right now.
Why is it so hard to support but background check was not this good. You know what would have? The bill that I introduced. We can make it harder for people to get guns in this country. You know that. No, you know that. But you stand here. You stand at the NRA convention. It is harder. It is harder. When there are more guns to stop gun violence. Ignorance and hatred. It is not ignorance. You don't know what you're talking about. We are in this country and there are guns everywhere. And there are kids dying. There are kids dying. Why is it so hard? Why is it so hard?
Okay. Benjamin, welcome to this program tonight.
Hey there.
All right. Well, thank you so much for doing that, I should say. First and foremost, you spoke for millions of Americans when you confronted Ted Cruz, not just for Houstonians, not just for Texans, but for millions of Americans. And so thank you for doing that.
Yeah, you bet. You know, for me, it was just like the thing that needed to happen in the moment. And if I was there and Ted Cruz was going to come into my space, then we were going to have a conversation. Yeah.
And so part of what we're trying to do tonight is to break this down. This video has become very popular. It's gotten national attention, and for good reason. And so we want to talk, which means it's been an effective way to communicate with our leaders. And so we want to spread the knowledge. We want to understand how this came to be and how other folks can replicate it. Because the more this happens, the closer we get to actually getting folks to listen to us. So the first question I think everybody has on their minds when seeing this video is, was it staged? How did y'all do that?
Yeah, so a lot of people ask me that question. No, it wasn't staged, and that's what I'm saying. I mean, like Ted Cruz has got I've been repeating this, but Ted Cruz has had to have the worst luck in the world. One, because you're Ted Cruz, and that's pretty unlucky, right? Like just bearing with yourself. But two, because, you know, of all the places where he could go dine in Houston after the NRA convention, he happened to show up to a restaurant where a board member of Indivisible was, right? When our stated mission is to hold politicians and their corporate funders accountable, you know, we were going to have a word. So yeah, no, it wasn't staged. I get that a lot, but it wasn't. I mean, we were very intentional, as you'll see tonight, and we'll walk you through about what we did with the moment. But it was just pure fate, is what I say. You know,
That's amazing, because I mean, I think that we forget sometimes that our elected officials are humans. They go to dinner, they go to the gym, they take their dogs for a walk. And so it is possible that this happened, and it's just kismet. It's luck that this happened. And so why'd you do it? I mean, you just said a little bit that you're on the board of Indivisible, so that's part of your why you've joined the board. But talk a little bit about why it is that you made that choice in the moment.
Yeah, I think like when we think of the tragedy that the families in Uvalde are living through right now, to see somebody like Ted Cruz just go to the convention, to a culture that celebrates guns and then actively blocks meaningful legislation to curb gun violence in this country. I mean, to me, it was like no choice. It was like a no-brainer. Like I need to confront this person because he is actively working against life. And so for me, it was just an instinctive like reaction of something that I needed to do.
Yeah, and I think that it's so important that you talk about the families of all the folks who've been murdered recently. Buffalo, Uvalde, literally yesterday in Tulsa, Oklahoma, a hospital was shot up. I mean, this is an epidemic that we must confront, and our political leaders are not showing the courage to confront it. And so, again, this is why, when I said at the beginning, you speak for millions of Americans when you get in Ted Cruz's face to do this. But it can be scary. I mean, he's a United States senator. He's probably got, goons around ready to. I mean, we've got an issue with police violence, right? And so it's possible that folks could have those folks around him, his security detail could have taken you down. So what happened? I mean, were you afraid? And what happened afterwards? What did we see that wasn't on camera?
Yeah, I mean, I to be honest with you, like I've never done anything like that. I'm mostly a behind the scenes kind of person. But so there was that bit of being afraid of like not knowing. But to me, all of that went secondary because we have to speak truth to power, and we have to challenge these elected officials, which is why we're here tonight, right? To talk about how we can do that. But I am gonna admit, like I wasn't like, all right, I'm gonna like go and I'm gonna do it this way. Like to me, it was like, okay, I know I need to do something, but there was a little bit inside of me that was a little afraid of like how to do this, right? And how to approach it.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, as a man of color, you walk up to a United States senator with a security detail. There's a fair bit of risk involved in that. And so it's courageous that you did that. And again, thank you for doing it. But you weren't the only one involved, were you? I mean, I hear there was a text message involved. Tell us a little bit about that, and then we're going to bring on another friend.
Yeah, so I mean, like I said, like, and this is why it's important to have like a peer group. Like I said, I'm a board member of Indivisible, and my first thought really was when I saw him walk in the restaurant, I was like, ever, right? Like it just like that was my natural reaction. Like, I can't believe you're here. But then my second thought was like, hey, I texted the Indivisible team, and I was like, Ted Cruz is here. Give me your thoughts, right? And so yeah, that's we started a quick text message thread.
So you're literally just out to dinner, expecting to have a nice meal on what was it, a Saturday night? I guess was it Friday or
Friday night.
Was it Friday night?
Yeah, Friday night.
So that was the day that there was the big protest. Yeah. And so you went out to have dinner, probably relaxing after a day that was very emotional for many of us. And in walks Ted Cruz, and you text the group of Indivisible folks, what do we do here? And so you guys then have a back and forth. Yeah. Is there sort of a flurry of ideas that go back and forth at that time?
I mean, look, at some point, I may have thought of spilling some red wine on Cruz. Like, we'll leave it at that. But the reality is, where we ended up with was like, we just need to confront him, right? And that was it, because ultimately that's what we're about, is confronting power and saying, hey, what are you doing here? And for me, it was like starting with background checks. So like, listen, forget about like all the other stuffs. Can we find this common ground where the majority of Americans agree on? Can we start there? And of course, we saw his reaction.
Yeah. Well, and that raises something that I don't want to talk about right now. We'll talk about later. It's the substance of what you do. Are you spilling wine on the guy? Are you yelling at him? Are you trying to engage him in sort of a actual discussion? What is it? What is the substance of the engagement going to look like? And there's a fair bit of thought that you put into that well in advance. But right now, before we move on, I want to bring on Daniel Cohen, who's the president and co-founder of Indivisible Houston. There you are. Hey, Daniel. I wanted to bring you on because you're one of the folks responsible for this, and I'd like you to talk a little bit about your involvement in this particular event, but then further about Indivisible and what this organization does.
Sure. Thanks, Rob, and thanks to you for being a member of media as well. This country needs it. Otherwise, the First Amendment isn't something we can uphold. Thanks for joining us. I mean, in terms of this in particular, Ben just said, you're not going to believe who's in this restaurant. And he let all of us know. And then we were all kind of putting our heads together. And there's another one of our board members, Greg, who is a hero. If you know Greg Broyles, he's a hero. He's so selfless and he works so hard for change. But he remembered that another hero who also is selfless and works hard for change, named Damaris Gonzalez, once stung Ken Paxton at a Republican speaking event in a very similar way, because at the time he was upholding some vicious deportation orders, just horrible treatment of undocumented communities here, and just horrible lies and rhetoric that was behind it. And so we kind of talked through it and we came up with a strategy, and then we shared it with Benjamin. And then, in terms of the action itself, he and Anna took care of that. And, we helped make sure that it got to the press and got to the world on the back end of it. But that was my involvement in this, at least.
And I want to we're going to go into that in great detail. But first, I wanted to hear a little bit, though. Daniel, you've been challenging government officials for a long time, let's say. Anybody who's been an elected official in this general vicinity knows who you are, and for good reason, I would say. So it's old hat for you to challenge elected officials. Can you talk a little bit about that, just the kind of tradition of doing that, what you embody when you're doing that, and then how Indivisible, just generally as an organization, plays into that as a mechanism to push it forward? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so glad that you said that in terms of the tradition, because Indivisible Houston stands on the shoulders of giants. I mean, historically, it's not like suddenly public pressure popped up with Indivisible Houston. There have been people who have been doing this kind of work and civil disobedience work and, nonviolent resistance and calling people to the carpet and calling people to task for a very long time. And we're proud to do that. We're proud to just be part of the tradition. It's Pride Month. ACT UP did wonderful work to make sure to move that fight forward. And we're just proud to be just a part of the long history of doing that. We arose largely after the Trump administration came to power. The Indivisible movement arose then, and we found ways to jam up Congress. And we've not only jammed up Congress, but by holding public officials accountable, the public can see what they stand for. And that means that a lot of times they have to wear their votes. And a lot of them that have had to wear their votes have found that the votes were too heavy, and it dragged them under during election season, and they got kicked out of office. That happened to John Culberson. It happened to some of the county officials that were here. And it almost happened to Ted Cruz, actually the last election cycle that he was up as well. So it is effective. It is part of the strategy. We love voter registration. We do some stuff like that with people and make sure to turn out the vote and get involved that way. But media, communications, making sure to put the message out there, making sure to engage people really matters. There are a lot of people out there who aren't engaged in the political process because they feel like they can't make a difference. But when you throw the tea in the harbor, if you will, or do some version of that, whatever analogy you'd like to use, then it does empower people and show people that they are just regular people, like you were saying, who have to go out to dinner and have to walk their dogs. So that's the history of that.
And that's such an important point, Daniel. Thank you for making it. And I think that, again, this is the beginning of June. This is Pride Month. And Pride is not just about rainbows and fun parades. Pride is an activist movement that started with a riot and led by marginalized people who have affected change over 40, 50 years since the beginning. So that's something that we can't forget, that it does work. It's hard to do it when you start doing it. Oftentimes you're cast as a radical or whatever, but it works. And so we're going to talk about that right now. So thank you for your work on that, Daniel. We're going to now move on to our next segment, which really I think is going to be great, because this is the nuts and bolts. When y'all contacted me to talk about this, Indivisible showed me a few slides really breaking down the anatomy of this kind of action, and that's what Daniel was calling it. It's an action. It's a political action to engage our electeds in this way. So now we're going to bring Benjamin back, and we're going to break down this action. Like, if you like sports, we can call it a playbook. It's like X's and O's. If you're not a sports person, let's call it like a math professor. We're going to break it down like formulas, like a proof. And so we're going to start with our basic axioms and move forward with our various pieces of the proof, if you don't mind that analogy. So, all right, Benjamin, let's get started on this. So where do we start on this playbook?
Yeah. So I mean, the first thing is to figure out your approach, right? And for me, it was, I was like, the thing I know and I've seen is like the picture bit, right? So I was like, let me just approach him and see if I can take a picture. And if we have that video up, like you've seen it before, but it's like, I'm like, maybe if I approach him and I'm like, well, he's probably seen this bit before. So I tried really extra hard to be like, when I approached him, I was like, excuse me, Senator, like not now, but after dinner, because I was trying to seem extra friendly, because I'm like, like maybe he's seen this before and he's going to be skeptical. So I was like, not now, after dinner, can I take a picture with you? And he started to move. And then I'm like trying to lay it on. And I'm like, no, not now. No, please sit down, enjoy your dinner afterward. And he's like, no, that's okay. Let's take a picture. And I was like, oh, okay. You want to do this now? All right, let's do this now.
Okay.
And so that was really,
so he's sitting down eating dinner. Presumably, was he with his family or was he with business people? What did
his family with about?
Yeah. Okay. So you walk up and you say, Senator Cruz, you're very gentle and nice about it. He says, all right, let's get up right now and let's take a picture. So then we've got a video that shows the very beginning there.
Hi. Okay, you ready? Okay, hold on. All right, 1, 2, 3. Go. We're good. Yeah, we got it.
All right, there. I have to admit, when I first saw that, I was like, "What the hell is Benjamin doing with that big ass smile next to Ted Cruz? What?" And then I was like, "Oh, I see what he's doing."
I was trying to be extra friendly, man. My friend watched that and she said, "Man, you couldn't wait to," because if you notice, and we saw a little bit right now, it's like when that picture was over, I just like turned right into him, and because I was like, I'm not here for the picture. I cannot believe we're going through this again in this country. And the way I got to do with you is put on a big ass smile just so I can get close to you, something which I'm not feeling. And that's why, like, the moment I could, I was like, okay, now here's what we're really here for. But yeah, so it takes us into so step one, we've broken this out into 4 steps. So step 1 here, real quick. So the first thing, if we can pull that up. So, you got to figure out your approach. And, the first thing is think about what you're going to say. There was a lot of thinking on my end. And in a bit, right now, I'm going to bring in Anna, my wife, and she's going to, in a few moments, we're waiting for her to get to a stop, but she'll give you her perspective. But think about what you're going to say and think about how to approach them. So ask for a photo, be friendly. Like I told you, I was like laying it extra thick, trying to be real friendly, right? Because I don't want them to know like what's going on. And then also think about what you're going to do during the moment. So for me, it was ask questions. And Daniel told me something that like I didn't really fully appreciate until like I was going through it. But he said, be loud with your voice, right? It was a loud restaurant. And so just even that small tip, right? Be loud with your voice. And then the final one is stay on them, right? As you saw, he tried to get away from that. He tried to move, he's security. And I'm not leaving, man. I have a question I want you to answer. And I think that's so important because they're going to squirm and try to get away from this. And that's so important. So anyway, Yeah.
let's keep this slide up because I want to unpack some of this. There's a lot going on here, and it's really good. So, you said at the beginning, you were like, do I throw wine on him? Do I do this and that? I mean, a lot of folks, let's be honest, who agree with our politics, want to go drop F-bombs and yell at him and this and that. And why is that not the way we do things or way we should do things? I mean, I suppose some people would say, yeah, that's how you should do it. Why didn't you do that?
Yeah, I think because for me, I had a serious question and I wanted to see if he had a serious answer. And it's that these are serious times when, like you said, it's not just like, I mean, we just saw it last night, right, in Tulsa. These things keep happening over and over, but it's Uvalde, Santa Fe, Midland, and all of these things keep happening. So to me, it's like, I need to get a moment where I can get close to him and ask him the question, because I genuinely want to know, do you actually care about this? And so, yes, I could have yelled the F-bombs and screamed at him, but I wanted to get close to him and really put him on the spot, frankly, challenge him, right? Put him on the spot and put him on record that you don't actually give a damn, because I can tell you don't give a damn.
Yeah. And I think that's the really good point here, which is that, yeah, you can just express emotional disapproval, which we all share. But to engage him in an intelligent way, the way you did, reveals something profound, which is the guy has no answers.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're a constituent. He represents you. And so when he refuses to talk to you, that's a dereliction of duty on camera. And that's one of the profoundly good things about doing this sort of action. And I think that's an important thing to highlight. So you go in and you're very friendly and you keep that smile on your face. The logistical points here are really important, though. Being loud, staying on him. Let's talk a little bit about why that's so important. Yeah.
Well, if we were going to capture these questions on video, right? Like I needed to be loud. Thank you, Daniel, for that pro tip. And staying on him, because just the way he's going to try to weasel out. And I would say, like, these politicians have been in there forever, right? They know how to weasel out of things. So staying on him, I mean, to the point where I was not even focused on anything else. You saw when they were dragging me out, right? I'm just like, I'm trying to talk. I don't even know who the hell is like I turn at one point and I'm like, who's like holding me? Because I'm like, stop, man. I'm trying to do this thing here and ask this guy this question. And so to me, that's so important to stay on them, right? Because there's going to be so many distractions, but like, you just stay focused, right? Like that's, hold these people accountable, make them sweat. They're making people suffer by their inaction, and we have to get in their face. That's what this is about challenging them, about getting in their face. The time for civility is over.
Yeah. That's so true. Well said. Thank you so much again for doing that. This and the next thing we're going to talk about here that's really important is that you couldn't have done that by yourself. Again, we talked to Daniel. You engaged
I had
Daniel via text. You had great help. And so step 2 of this formula, of this playbook, involves the actual tool that was able to disseminate this, which is a recording device, a phone in this particular instance, held by another person. So Anna, do we have Anna? Can we bring Anna on to discuss her role in all of this?
Hi, can you hear
Anna,
me?
welcome. Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
I'm in Pearland, which sometimes doesn't have great reception.
No problem. We got you.
Okay, talk to me.
All right, Anna. Well, so if you could just talk a little bit about your role in all of this. How did you get involved in this sort of so quickly?
So I just parked. I'm picking up my daughter. I will be quick. We were at the restaurant. Ben wanted to do something, and when we ultimately decided that the best course of action would be to engage him, Ben said, "You got to film it. Here's how we're gonna do." Here's how we're going to do it. You're going to take a picture, but you're not actually going to take the picture. You're going to be filming the whole time. So you get it. I actually hate being put in this position because I hate like being the one like looking at my phone when you could be like present in the situation. But it also occurred to me that this was this was not a ploy. This wasn't something we were setting up for social media. And so two things. One, it needed to be like really naturally done. And 2, it actually had to get done, which means I couldn't just be there on my phone and have people thinking, oh, get her out here because get her out of here because she's just recording this and it's going to make us look bad. I was sure that they would like kick me out first. So when you see the video and I say, 1, 2, 3, okay, we're done. I'm like trying to like, how do you fake a picture? I don't know. Apparently I did a good job. And then I just held it to my chest. Like, I have baby crackers. I just like held it right here and sort of like looked down and then just like really, I think looked at it like once or twice and was just like, oh God, I really hope that I'm getting this. And when we got out of the restaurant and Ben said like, I don't know, I think he said, did you get it? And I was like, I think so. I think it's good enough.
Oh, did you get it? So
yeah.
I think, so, during that moment, there's a lot going on, right? So you're having to use this recording device to capture something. Benjamin is doing something that could put him in physical danger, could put you in physical danger as well. I mean, you're walking up to a United States senator and secretly sort of recording him, and you did it very well. This whole thing about holding the phone to your chest, recording kind of secretly, that's really smart. Well done. Everybody should replicate that. But how, I mean, let's be real a little bit here. It's kind of scary, I imagine,
No, it didn't occur to me to be scared. I was just like in the moment.
Okay.
What I'm really glad is that that we do have it because I thought it was going to create more of a scene, and nobody even looked until the very end when Ben is shouting, and that's where you have that other TikTok video of her like recording the end where like Ted waves. So I'm really glad that we got that. I mean, that was the whole goal of having this video, is that like we could show that Ben engaged the senator, how he responded to these questions, what he was saying. But I fully thought that I wasn't going to be the only one recording that. And it turned out that I was from what we can tell, one of only 2 people who recorded it and who maybe even noticed what was going on.
Yeah. And I think, do we have another slide for this one? I think we might have a slide to go over some of the points here, but I mean, there are just some logistical issues here that you did very well. Well, one is to, here we go. Yes, here we go. I don't know if you can see it, Anna.
Yes,
there's Benjamin again.
Yeah.
So we've got keeping everyone in frame. That's huge, because how many videos do you see where it's like feet, you hear something, hustle and bustle, and then you kind of have to make things out? No, you were in frame the whole time.
Yeah, Anna did a great job here, and I know Anna, you got to pick up the baby, so we'll let you go. Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Anna, good to see you. Thank you.
Yeah, so I mean, keeping everybody in the shot. I mean, like when you go through that, even as they're dragging me out, I just look at like, gosh, Anna, you did it. Like, thank you for doing that, right? And thank you for not being like, Ben, don't do this. This could be dangerous. Because I think we both realize, like, oh my gosh, especially now, like we have a 15-month-old and saying, oh my gosh, this hits differently. It shouldn't, right? But it like hits differently, and so like I'm just so appreciative that we were able to do this together, because she wasn't like, don't do this, like you might get in trouble, you might get arrested. She was like, we're both like, this is bigger than us and we need to do this, right? So keeping everybody in the shot, staying nearby. She stayed near me the whole situation. As you saw that video, I mean, she was right there, and keeping rolling, right? She didn't stop rolling for anything. Like she was a little afraid. I remember now when I heard her say it, she was afraid that she hadn't gotten it in the commotion, but obviously she did. So yeah, just again, keep the frame wide so you can catch everything, keep everybody in the shot, stay nearby, right? Because that's when you can capture the audio in the video, and keep rolling. Just keep rolling. When in doubt,
you're probably not going to be able to wire a mic in on short notice like that. And so yes, staying close is not just important for having a good visual, but it's there to mainly get the audio, which was absolutely captured in your video. So that's so important. And I guess the last point here, keep rolling. You never know what's going to happen. Keep it going.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
really appreciative to not have done that alone.
Yes. You had excellent help through all of that. So, okay. So now let's move along in this playbook here. So you've got this video, you've confronted the senator, you've got this great video. What do you do with it now? So those of you watching, let's, just think about like you're doing this in your own wherever you are in your jurisdiction with your own elected official who you are challenging. You've now got this great video. What do you do next? And we're going to bring Daniel Cohen back on to talk about that very issue. So what do you do with this video now, Daniel?
Got to come off mute first. That's
important.
So, well, and let me just say as a precursor to all this, look, if you're not a communications person or professional, all right, then it's okay to talk to a friend about this part and kind of coordinate with them. And if it doesn't go perfectly in getting it out, try to do some of these steps as best you can, basically, too, because it can be intimidating, right, to do these different things.
Yeah.
I'm schooled in communications, so writing a press release is something I know how to do. And it's, it involves a headline. This is what happened, the lead in the beginning, a quote in terms of what your take on it is, some facts to back you up, and then links wherever it's necessary. There are a lot of bloggers. There's a lot of media people out there that want to be able to put a story together very quickly. And so if they're able to chase it, now they write it the way that they write it, but in the way that they want to write it, because journalists do their job, which they should. But at least you can give them the heart of the story from your perspective so that they have everything from you, and so that you kind of have an advanced frame on how you're going to put it together. So as soon as Ben had it, I started putting something together very quickly. And after we did that, we kind of coordinated, made sure that the video was the way that we wanted it to be, and that it was the right file and things like that, and started hitting social immediately. If you can't get a press release together, honestly, if you can hit social immediately, it's still going to go viral. Probably, if you get the right footage. In fact, there are some constituents in Iowa tonight who just nabbed footage of Chuck Grassley at a town hall arguing against the filibuster, and it's going viral as we speak. So you can find that one later. So people are doing this all over the country, as they should. But distribute it: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever else. If you're not a social media person, talk to somebody who you might know is a social media person who's friendly and would like to see these things go live. From there, if you can tag people who are friendly influencers, then go ahead and tag them. We have Indivisibles all around the state and really all around the country. We've got our friend, shout out to Alex Montalvo and Indivisible Fort Worth, a hero of the state of Texas. But we tagged him, we tagged the Indivisible National Organization, all kinds of different people, to make sure that they would see it. And we tagged all of the media people as well. So whether it was political, cultural, whether it's somebody who wants to see this video get spread, or if it's somebody who just believes in making sure to share information to the public, like a journalist, make sure to tag them so that they can spread it around. There are a lot of people out there. And again, I can't help say this enough. If you do it and you need help and you know communications people, it's okay. This was a team effort. People do this stuff together, and we all support one another and back one another up. And that's what a movement is people working together every step of the way, not just for this, but for everything. So it's okay to do it when you're trying to hold a public official accountable as well. And then from there, stick around to boost, retweet your coverage, amplify it, spread it around to other people, and take the interviews and talk to people. I'll put one note in there: vet the people who ask to interview you, because you got to. You never know who's going to ask, and if somebody, it doesn't matter kind of how professional it looks. If you don't know who it is, just make sure to vet the people who want to interview you. Stay on message. Keep coming back to the importance of doing this. You'll notice in all of Benjamin's interviews that he has continued to come back to what the message is, the really important message, which is long past time for comprehensive common sense gun reform in this country. We don't want to see any more dead students, dead teachers over this nonsense. We don't want to see people getting killed by white supremacists, as we saw in Buffalo. It's time for us to start making changes. If you're able to put it in more than one language, whether that's a press release, a social media information, or if that's interviews that you're doing, then do that. But keep pumping interviews, keep repackaging them, keep sharing them out, and keep connecting with people. And then from there, just make sure that you're splitting up the duties, right? So one person can be interviewing, another person can be vetting and repackaging and amplifying and connecting with other people. And finally, accessibility. If you can add captions and provide a transcript, do it. If not, there are other things that you can do in real time as you can. The news cycle is not the most accessible thing in the world. The world is not always as accessible as it should be, but we should try to make it accessible, and we should try to improve that in real time. So, can work on those things as you can, do everything that you can to make sure that everybody's able to see this, hear this, experience this, and be part of the movement and be part of the moment that you captured to the best of your abilities. And again, lean on friends, work together with other people. You don't have to do it all alone, but that's how you get the message out there.
Yeah, no, thank you for going all of that. I want to unpack it very briefly though, real quick, because I want to make sure people aren't scared by that. There's the good and there's the perfect, and one should not be the enemy of the other, as they say. And so if you are not a communications expert, or if you are not connected to a communications expert, it's okay. If you've got a great video, then there are pieces of what Daniel just said that you can implement. You don't have to get it perfect the first time around. Just getting it out there is important. Yeah, would you say that, Daniel?
Look, if you stand up and you challenge a public official and you make sure to capture them on video, and you made sure that they were not able to avoid you, you did a great thing. You did a great thing for the world. You did a great thing for the country, and you did a great thing for your community. So you do not have to be a PR person. You do not have to execute all of this perfectly. That was my background. So when I saw that things needed to be done in this world to push back against public officials, that's what I did. But there are all kinds of great people who do all kinds of wonderful things for democracy that are not related to writing press releases and pumping out communications. And also, we'll go another step too, and this may be worth something that we could reinforce a little bit later in this broadcast today. But if it doesn't go viral, you still did a great thing. If all you did was make sure to hold them accountable and stand up and do your civic duty, you did a great thing. So I think you brought up a good point there. There's nothing to be intimidated by. I just wanted to make sure to share with everybody the exact playbook end to end for those that want to pick it up, or if you pick up pieces of it and can execute parts of it. If that helps anybody, those are the steps, but do it to the best of your abilities, and you might have work the next day too, right? Maybe you don't have the time or whatever it is, or if you're figuring it out on the fly, you could say, I could do this, but I'm working 3 jobs because I'm getting price gouged by Greg Abbott's rich friends, and these corporations in the state of Texas. And I just, all I can do right now is cut this footage and push it out. I'll tell you what, though, if you get that footage and you don't have time to push it out, I know an organization, Indivisible Houston. You can go to indivisiblehouston.org, and we'll make it happen for you.
100%. And that's another great point, is that Indivisible's here to help folks out. And so reach out, please. And I want to bring on Lauren right now to talk about that last point that you just made. And we've got the video, we've published it, it's out there. It might go viral, it might not. So
and it might not.
Now, Lauren? Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Rob. Hi, everybody. I'm Lauren with Indivisible Houston. So proud to call Benjamin and Nisha and Greg and Daniel my colleagues. Speaking of things that don't go viral, I'm usually the person on our team who does the spreadsheets and the back end tasks, and I'm not usually somebody who wants to get in front of a camera. And so I wanted to share with you a little story about me and a way that I found a way to make my Congress critter hear what I had to say. And yes, I did just call him a Congress critter.
I was going to say, I've not heard that before. I think that's strong. Congress critter.
I actually am really fond of that one. I can't claim it originally mine, but it's pretty solid. So
it should be used far and wide.
So if you lived in Texas at any point up until 2018, you will know the name John Culberson, aka Country Club Culberson, who was the former representative for the Texas 7th Congressional District. Among his many failures, he was almost single-handedly responsible for how our metro area has not nearly enough mass public transportation. I got a whole soapbox for you. I will spare you that soapbox. But anyway, it's like June of 2018. It's a hot Sunday morning. I'm sitting probably just drinking my coffee, reading Twitter or whatever. And I happen to know somebody who goes to Culberson's church. And I get a text from this person that says, "Hey, Lauren, John Culberson's at this service. Are they on summer break?" And I was like, oh crap, I forgot Congress gets like the whole summer off. Well, the service just started. Like, you were just talking to me about Culberson's position on healthcare and a whole bunch of other stuff. And I was like, yes, okay, I can be there in 10 minutes. So I wrote up a poster with a Sharpie, just a plain old poster. There was no graphic design. And I essentially said, like, hey, Culberson, please listen to your own church leadership about universal healthcare access, because it turns out that's a thing that his own church leadership thought. And I was like, well, if I'm going to get him to listen, I should probably tell him that people he's supposed to listen to say this, right? So anyway, jump in my car, drive across town. I was there by the time the service was over, and I was standing at the parking lot exit with my sign and my sunscreen and my big floppy hat. And I brought a friend, and the two of us stood, right, bring a friend, because like you don't do these things by yourself if you can.
Yeah.
And we stayed there quietly and respectfully on that sidewalk with our signage. And we stayed until the service was over, and we stayed until the parking lot was cleared. And you know what? We were on a public access space. They couldn't kick us out. A couple of the security guards were like, what are you doing? And we're like,
Yeah.
oh, we're just here. We're just here to talk to our congressman about his church. And like, how do they get mad at that, right?
Although they sometimes do. Yeah.
Well, fortunately, I looked less like a heathen then, and they didn't scan me for like, I don't know,
Well, and
whatever they
there's
scan me
something
for.
to be said. I mean, like if
So
you are a white person, particularly, you know, who might enjoy some privilege, who is not going to be targeted by police, then a good way to use that privilege is what you're describing right now.
And that was why I was really glad that my friend went with me, because she's an older, like very white looking lady. I
Yeah.
am appropriately racially ambiguous, but they read me how they wanted to, and that helped me
Yeah.
at this time. And so like the really neat thing about this was that there were people in his own congregation honking in support of us. And they read our signs as they drove past, and they were like, oh my gosh, you're right. John Culberson, who I just saw in church, doesn't believe this thing about universal health care access, which means that our presence catalyzed my member of Congress being really like cringily self-aware about how he's out of step with people that he probably thought mostly had his back 20 minutes beforehand. And so what I want to say about this is that, like, did we take some pictures? Yeah. Like, did we call
Yeah.
a reporter? No. But that wasn't really the point at the time, because what we wanted this member of Congress to know is that people in his own community were ashamed of him and his position, and that he was out of step with his own constituents. Like, I'm not usually a front of house person. I needed to let this guy know I was angry. Like, that's literally what they sign up for when they run for office, right? And if you don't take serious questions from reporters, from serious reporters anyway, if you don't take serious meetings with constituents who might criticize you, and if you still insist on standing for public office, Ted Cruz, then you better be ready for some serious questions from your constituents when we find you in public. And if it gets a little angry or a little heated, well, guess what, Buttons? Like, that's part of civil life too, because anger is part of hope. And like, there's a saying about how hope has two daughters, anger and courage. And sometimes you got to find the anger to find the courage. And even if you and the people in the room are the only ones who ever know this happened, even if it doesn't go viral, you know that you did right by yourself, and you did right by your community, and you did right by the people you care about. And yeah, that's a lot to be proud of, even if nobody ever sees it on Twitter. So that is my 2
100%.
cents.
And such valuable 2 cents, I think. I mean, literally everybody should do this at some point. And it, you know, going viral is great because it can get the word out, it can galvanize and motivate folks to go together. But even a person who is the only person who sees it, that's a data point. That's an experience that elected official has. They're going to remember that. They might
they
not.
gotta go to sleep with it, and they gotta look themselves in the mirror at the end of the day. So
As much as they are, I would say 90% reptiles, they do have some humanity in their heads.
be nice to the iguanas, okay?
True. Let's not disparage iguanas here. So they have some humanity, and so the human interaction, all kidding aside, you know, the human interaction from a person who clearly is expressing emotion, is expressing, you know, reason over a policy matter, is something that will stick in their head somewhere. And gosh, if 5 people do it, it's going to be a little bit more. If 15 people, if 50 people, if 100, if thousands, now we're talking. And that's actually a really good seg into our next segment, which is, and Lauren, thank you so much for sharing that experience with us. Next segment, we are going to talk about the March for Our Lives coming up on June 11th. And I believe we have some more guests here.
Hello.
Hi. All right, we've got folks from March for Our Lives. Could you please introduce yourselves to our viewers?
Hello, everyone. My name's Mujibat, and I'm the Executive Secretary for March for Our Life Houston.
Hi, I'm Nora Tinsley, and I am the Creatives co-lead for March for Our Lives Houston.
Fantastic. Well, thank you all so much for joining us in this really important, I think, event tonight. And so part of the action that we're talking about, it's confronting our electeds. One piece of that, one very important piece of that is these particular moments in our history when we can galvanize literally thousands of people to come together. And that's exactly what y'all are planning on June 11th, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
So what's going to happen? Tell us what's going to happen on June 11th. Why should people come out?
Well, first of all, as an organization, we've done a lot of work in the past, not only calling together rallies or protests like the march that we're going to be doing, but also doing things like mutual aid drives and voting campaigns, and doing both political and community work to make sure that the issue of gun violence gets addressed. Would you like to talk some more about what the march is going to entail?
Okay, so following like the tragic shooting in Uvalde, Texas, which claimed the lives of 19 children and 2 adults, it has become like really clear that gun violence is an epidemic that's become more prominent in our state, especially like our country. So the national team for March for Our Lives will be holding a demonstration in Washington, D.C. And on June 11, there will be 380 marches occurring locally around the United States. And we will also be having one in Texas also, which is at like Tranquility Park. Through our march, we intend to bring our community together. We really want to demand change. We want to have more direct actions. And most importantly, we want to advocate. So what we expect, especially from like our city council representatives and government officials, is for them to implore like legislative change. We have so many issues and factors that surround gun violence, and without a doubt we believe that if the appropriate resources are like allocated to the appropriate locations, then the effect of gun violence could be mitigated.
Thank you very much for that. I want to go over some of the very logistical nuts and bolts details here while we're talking about it, though. June 11th, Tranquility Park. What time? And that's downtown for folks if you want to Google it, but it's downtown next to City Hall. What time are things getting started there?
So the march. Oh.
No, you can go ahead.
So the march will be at Tranquility Park on June 11th, and it will start at 10 a.m. and we intend to stop at like 1 p.m. But most importantly, we just really want people to gather up and just advocate for the right things.
Okay, great. You know the drill, Houston. If you've come out, we had 60,000 people in downtown Houston marching for George Floyd in 2020. We can do it again this time because it's a piece of the same problem. That police violence against African-American people in this country is a piece of the same problem that is gun violence in this country. And so that militarized kind of culture that folks on the right fetishize, we need to show that we do not support it and that we will not stand for it. So thank you so much for being leaders in this event. We look forward to seeing you on June 11th. Is there anything else that y'all would like to share with viewers before we go on?
Yeah, really quickly, one of our plans for the march, which pretty perfectly fits into the idea of challenging your legislative officials, but we plan to not only march and sorry, my cat is going crazy. I don't know if you can hear him. We plan not only to march and have a protest with signs and bring together the community to advocate, but we also plan to march down to Ted Cruz's office and directly address him and yell at him and make sure that he can understand and fully hear the complaints of our community and understand that this issue is so important to us and that we won't stop until we get comprehensive legislative change.
Excellent. And that's part of challenging them. That's on theme with what we're talking about tonight. You can go, if you see you're elected in a restaurant, go up, talk to them, get it on video, but also come out on June 11th with literally thousands, hopefully tens of thousands of Houstonians, so we can show Ted Cruz and all of these elected folks that we will not stand for this. So thank y'all so much for your leadership on this. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yep. Okay. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of our program tonight. I'm going to bring Benjamin Hernandez back on now for some final words. I think this has been a pretty practical, but also good program to go through the subject, which is challenging folks who don't want to talk to us, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, Rob. And I'm so glad that here we're able to wrap up here with Cam Caskey. I'm gonna go ahead
Oh,
and
great.
bring him up. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and bring him up because we were talking today about these things. Like we were on this thing, here in Houston about like getting in Ted Cruz's face. And I just love talking to Cam today and like hearing about what he's doing. Cam, I'm just gonna go take it. Like, what we talked about today. Tell me about what's going on nationally. We heard some of our March for Our Lives group here from Houston, but give us the big picture. What do we got from your end?
Well, first of all, shout out March for Our Lives Houston. You guys have a hard job. And it's not easy to be a gun violence prevention organizer in a state where you can run around with an AR-15 willy-nilly. I remember when my buddies and I went to Houston on the summer tour that we did to register voters, there were people posting up at our events with fucking AR. Am I allowed to cuss on this? With AR-15s. And it was scary to a certain degree. I mean, we knew that they were cowards, but it was terrifying. So March for Our Lives Houston, if you're somebody watching this, those people have a tough job. I wouldn't want to be March for Our Lives Houston. I really like it here in my bed. Anyway, as the person with the second coolest beard on this facial, on this Zoom, I can tell you all that we need to go nuts. We can't be cute anymore. All right. The Parkland kids used to be cute. We were all cutesy dootsy for everybody in America. Look at how sad we are. Everybody's mad now. Everybody's pissed. We're all older and sad looking. I can hardly fit into my March for Our Lives shirt. My belly got too big in the past 4 years. Look at the circles under my eyes. This is the apocalypse mode, and we need to treat it like that. And we can't be fun anymore. We can't be cute, and we can't be nice. And that is the biggest issue that we are seeing from President Biden right now, is he is trying to play buddy with his Republican friends that he's been personal friends with for decades, for longer than my fucking parents have been alive. For a very, very long time, people like Mitch McConnell have been great friends of Joe Biden. If you look it up, they are buddies. So the concept that we need to be making some sort of compromise with these individuals, the concept that we could ever even begin to pluck the heartstrings of a Republican needs to go right into the toilet alongside the guns. And the fact of the matter is, if we keep on playing by the rule book, we're going to keep on losing, because Democrats lose by playing by the rule book. Republicans want something, they can't get it, they will obstruct the country into shit until they can get it. Donald Trump had senators and congressmen who wouldn't play his games. He beat them into submission until they were eating from his hand. And Joe Biden won't even mention Manchin and Sinema if he thinks it's not going to be nice enough. This is not about being nice. I was with my buddy last night, Manuel Oliver, whose son was murdered at my high school, and he is very, very, very fucking done with people being friendly about this. There's nothing friendly about empty beds in homes. There's nothing friendly about saying goodbye to your kids when you're sending them to school and not knowing if they're coming back. And there's certainly nothing friendly about going to the fucking hospital and getting shot. So this whole notion across so many different communities of gun violence prevention organizers that we need to be anything other than radical, intense, and scary is bullshit. We need to scare these people. These Republicans should, as you all know, these Republicans should not feel safe in public. They should not feel safe leaving their houses. They should not feel safe in their houses. They should not feel safe. None of us feel safe. If people can't send their fucking kids to school without being afraid that kid is going to end up in a casket with a bullet in them, then people like Joe Manchin should not be able to go eat dinner. That's not the game we're playing. This is an epidemic that we need to be addressing the way that it is, with people dying. And mind you, Americans clearly don't care when people die, or else they would have stayed at home during the COVID pandemic. But here we are. America's second language is death. It's the only thing any of us know. People are done. People are sick of playing nice. So we have to be mean. We have to be scary, and we need to make these politicians fear for their lives.
Man, I'm so glad to hear you say that.
Thank you very much for that, Cam.
Yeah, man, because it's the thing that that inside of me at that restaurant, that's what I'm like, I cannot, I need to get in this person's face. And to hear you say that, I'm like, yeah, because I've been thinking, it's like, we're losing, right? And we're playing this nice game. It is time for civility is like over. We have to get in people's face, make them uncomfortable, whether it's at the restaurant, down the street, at the theater, grocery store. I don't care, because like that's not a priority anymore, and we've
You don't
been
get to feel
losing.
comfortable. They don't get to feel. What kind of restaurant was that, by the way?
It was a sushi restaurant. Yeah, fancy
good?
sushi restaurant.
Was it? Is it? Do you know? Have you been there before? Is it good?
Yeah, Uptown Sushi. Yeah, it's good. It's good.
Okay, well, guess what, Ted Cruz? You don't get your good sushi anymore. All right.
No, it's true, man. I just like, you know, and what I hope is that like every time if he's gonna go back there, he can understand that that's not a safe space for him anymore. And that's what I think. I'm like, it's an upscale part of Houston. He's thinking he's probably safe, but we can't, right? We can't play that game anymore. Okay. Cam, thank you so much for joining us, like for telling us about that. I mean, like it's wonderful that like you and I hadn't talked today, but like everybody, we're on this wavelength, right? Because we're pissed and we need to do something. So Cam, thanks. We appreciate it. And to everybody else here, like we just want to say thank you for being with us tonight. You know, obviously this is going to be recorded and we're going to leave it up on the website. You can go to challengedthem.com, which is where this is at. And, you know, I just want to leave you with, we all can do this, right? I was not a person who was like seeing myself as going and confronting my elected official. That's not me, right? In fact, like I've said this before, but my mom was proud that I got in the face of Ted Cruz, of an elected official. But also she was a little bit disappointed that I dropped the F-bomb. But to me, it's like those things like got to go to the side. And right, like when you are feeling so angry about a situation, right? Like I was, like you have to connect with that, because these people are just going about their business like nothing happened, when the reality, it is happening, happened last night, it happened a week ago, it happened in Buffalo 18 days ago, and it continues to happen over and over again. And so what we want you to take away is here the playbook, right, that we walked you through, steps 1 through 4, how you can do this. But don't be afraid to get in their face, because they are not afraid to forget about us. They are not afraid to be able to do and ignore us, right? And so, you know, keep that in mind. Now, for those of you, I'm going to switch gears real quick. For those of us that are here in Houston, Indivisible Houston, I want you to put up the website here, because those of you that are watching us in Houston, we want you to get connected with our work. We have some big stuff being planned, you know, for this month and for the rest of the year, especially during election time. So on June 26th at 2 p.m., we're going to be at Axelrad Beer Garden. And what we're going to do, we're going to have a general meeting. We want to invite you to come on out and join us, because we are going to talk to you about the plans and how you can get involved. One of them is like what we talked about today, is like pressuring our elected officials. But we've got this year of important elections coming up, right? But we also have next year of local city elections coming up, and we have to get ready for this stuff. So we want to be able to have you there with us. It's the Sunday of Pride weekend. So on that Sunday, the 26th at 2 p.m., we want you to join us there. So again, once again, if you want to support our work and get connected, let's put that back up. It's indivisiblehouston.org. If you want to volunteer, send us a message. If you want to donate, send us, you can do it right there. We got some really cool things planned, and we want you to be a part of it. So with that being said, I just want to thank everybody on the Indivisible Houston team, Rob, everybody, the March for Our Lives Houston team that was here with us, Cam, and everybody, and all of you for joining. So again, go to challengedthem.com. This recording will be there, but the playbook is there too. All right. Thank you very much, y'all. We will see you.